Welcome to the Empowerment Coaching 5-Day Emotional Reset Challenge. This is day 4, November 17th. I need to stop here to say thank you, as I have done on other days. Those who are attending live were such a support to me. I appreciate that they wanted to see what I had to share and took the time in the middle of the day to be with me. And since I know each one, I feel really gratified for you to witness really something remarkable in my life. And that is, you're witnessing my coming out of hiding, playing small, out into the world to show up who I am and to claim my power. I mentioned in another time, I think, that I'm in numerological terms a master number 22. And now I feel I'm coming into that powerful number in terms of being a paradigm shifter. And in the course of the last few days and today, I hope you can feel different paradigms shifting in you. And perhaps ultimately, which I want to project into the future, you are without paradigms because you are your own true self. So you are witnessing through this presentation my not playing small, but deciding to play big. And the reason I'm able to do this is because of the work that I've done, that I am articulating the keys and locks to share with you, so you don't take the length of time that I did to make progress through your personal, spiritual development or healing. Moving from confusion, feeling lost, unfulfilled, dissatisfied, stuck, to seeing more clearly. And today is such a powerful piece. It's something that mostly scholarly people speak about, and it's certainly not discussed in therapy at all, and not in coaching, because the work that I do is broad and deep. And today we're going to get into the depth of some of it. So if it goes over your head, just get what you can understand. And as I may have suggested before, it's one thing to take this into the mind, but it may be there for 12 hours or less until you bring these concepts into your life in terms of action. Nothing is going to change. Everything you learn needs to be translated into practical action and decisions. And we'll practice that today too. The keys, the secrets of what I did to get to the point I am is I call ACE. A for aware, accept, awaken. C, choose, change, connect. E, empower, evolve, expand. I feel that I am more in the now. I am certainly becoming and being. I am here. So I love this particular figure because it suggests being present, and I intend to be as present as I can as I present this material. And what is held in the hand, the globe of all things, because ultimately we're all connected. And the part of the end result of the work that I do and I work with individuals to do is ultimately to aim to a sense of unity. All right. What were aware, accept, awaken? Be aware always of your current challenges and pain. The first day had an assignment for you to look at your current challenges and pain and record them. Because without awareness of your current situation that isn't working for you, you can ignore it, forget it for another time, ride over it, and nothing changes. So you're still in pain. So awareness is so important. Accepting what is in your life, what is before you, is always necessary if you're going to move forward. The reason why so many people suffer is because they won't accept, they'll ignore, they'll bury, they'll figure out ways to not be bothered or figure out a way around it. And the most powerful thing you can do is to accept. The third is awaken. All of this is about awakening to your possibilities and potential. And I'll explain more in the course of this, because although this is the first part of the system explained yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, all of that always comes into play because I think that these sort of spiritual concepts are vital to any kind of coaching, any kind of transformation you are seeking. You need the element of what the sacred path, the spiritual path provides. One of my favorite quotes by Thich Nhat Hanh: awareness is like the sun. When it shines on things, they are transformed. So this awareness that I keep stressing, it's like the sun, so that when awareness shines on it, things are transformed. That's how powerful awareness is. And we'll talk more about how to become stronger at awareness, be more constantly aware. Acceptance, Maya Angelou. Acceptance is the first step towards peace. Remember what I suggested earlier. If you don't accept, you're struggling with whatever is there. The moment you accept, that struggle ends and you're at peace. And another favorite quote of mine: he who looks on the outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens. From the moment that we're born, from the moment we're incarnated, the outside world is right in our face. And the outside world is full of chaos, conflict, death. It's messy. And so from the very beginning, we had to deal with the outside world. So for most of the time growing up, teenage years, in your 20s, mostly you're concerned about the outside world because you have to navigate, not to get lost, figure out what it is that you do in it, how to move to where you want to move in terms of career, education, and so forth. So it makes sense. But if you are concerned about changing, about transforming, about evolving and maturing, you need to look inside. As Carl Jung said, it's the only way to awaken from being caught in the outside world with its strong power to ultimately destroy your spirit. The C of A.C.E, change how you deal with emotions, choose to receive their messages, connect with your inner child. So yesterday I spoke a lot about negative emotions, which most of us are not comfortable with. So we tend to look away, deny them, bury them, try not to let them bother you. And I suggested that is the very opposite of what we all need to do. We need to embrace our feelings because they are messages, cries from the heart. And when you go to the heart, you can choose to receive their messages because there are messages about your needs and how they're being trampled on. So that anger is a strong no from the heart. No, I don't like this. I don't want this. Connect with your inner child. This is a process that I use a lot in terms of healing. The inner child holds keys to how you can live a better life. Now, E, which is what today is about, is empower through your subconscious, evolve through creativity, expand to your divinity. I'm going to spend a lot of time on the subconscious. Here is a beautiful image of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, like an iceberg. Reminds me of the Titanic. Okay, so there's the visible, the conscious. I don't know whether you realize that in any given moment right now, what you're conscious of is only 5% of what is affecting you. 95% is in the subconscious. So we really need to pay attention to the subconscious, don't you think? Here's why. In the subconscious are all of our memories, beliefs, habits, our traumas. Habits are a series of learned behaviors, societal conditioning, and physiological functions. You know how it is. Your heart beats without your consciously making it beat, because the subconscious is taking care of these physiological functions. The liver, the kidney, the bladder, they all are operating for your body to work subconsciously. What really concerns us are the things that contain elements we need to become aware of, to make changes in how we see things so that we can act, we can choose different actions, make different decisions. So supposing you had a belief because you were overcome by the chaotic nature and the toxic nature of humanity, you might have the belief subconsciously that the world is an unfriendly place. And coming from that belief, you may have developed pessimism and skepticism. You know who you are. You're the one that can articulate the worst case scenarios. You can say, I'm not sure that's right about anything presented to you. You can be skeptical. That is a very defensive position. It's an alternative to be open-minded, to be optimistic. Look for the silver lining. Look for the good there is. Now, those who are pessimists and skeptics see and live in a darker world. Those who are optimistic live more joyfully because they see good, positive things. So how did that ever get started? Did you ever stop to think, whichever one you are? I am an optimist. And I'm very happy that somehow that's the way it turned out for me. So all your emotions can be from the source in the subconscious. And depending on how you grew up, how anger, fears, and sadness are treated, any of these so-called negative emotions, they will make you want to keep a lot of the negative emotions outside of consciousness, in your subconscious. And being there, they still affect you. And you are unaware of why you're suddenly angry, suddenly afraid, or suddenly really sad. All the habits that you have, which means practically everything you do. What do you do when you get up in the morning? Do you have coffee? Do you shower? Do you brush your teeth? Your choices are really habitual. What's the opposite of that? Getting awake and thinking, what do I feel like doing? What do I need to do? So there's no predictable path that you go forward on. Those are simple ways of describing habits. But habits also are the ways you carry yourself, whether diminished or arrogantly or like pushy or more gentle and demure. And if you see yourself, you haven't changed that much in how you appear to others, because everything that you have are sourced in the unconscious or subconscious, and you operate that way. What is very strong in your subconscious are all the societal conditioning that you receive. Don Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements talked about the dream of the planet. By that he meant all of the ways your parents, your family culture, your society culture, your country's culture, whether you're Western or Eastern, that kind of culture, they all have rules, values, shoulds, imperatives about how you ought to be living, how you should be doing, how you should speak, how you should look. So very, very superficially, how you dress depends on what culture you grew up in. How you speak. And in terms of dress, we can see in my American culture how there are fads. The fads affect some people. And They throw away the old and get what is faddish, and that's how the fashion industry makes its money, by creating fads and so forth. That's just a superficial way of expressing societal conditioning. Societal conditioning is a way of keeping control of individuals in a society so they behave well enough so they can function in society. Those who don't get enough of that conditioning for whatever reasoning, break the laws, hurt people, end up in prison, in jail, and so forth. So there are certain kinds of conditioning or imprinting that you received, but it's far more extensive than that. The conditioning, you learn the rules of a particular vocation or profession that you enter. You learn what is right, what's the best way of getting ahead, and so forth, and so forth. And in current situation in business, women have a glass ceiling. So many women have adopted the man's way of being in business so that they can get ahead. That's the imprinting and conditioning. They accept it. So they behave in the ways that they believe will make them successful. So that is some of what's in the subconscious. Whoops. My anxious finger moved me ahead. Carl Jung is the one who spoke a lot about the subconscious. And one of his major concepts is the shadow. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. What he means by this is that the shadow lives within us. And until we see the effects of it in our conscious life and begin to reflect on what is hidden in the dark inside, our life is going to be pretty dark. Another way of looking at Jung's concept is perception is projection. So what you see comes from the inside. So if you're wounded in various ways, it's like these traumas put all kinds of gunk on the lens through which you perceive the world. So like a skeptic or pessimist, they projected expectation of danger. They were afraid. So when they look outside their lens, they notice a lot of danger in any somewhat neutral scene. Take another person who had a more positive outlook, who feel the world is a friendly place. They notice the good. They barely see the bad. And this is because of their past. Each of us bring our past, and it's through the past that we look out into the world. It's through our past that we look into the future. So those who are hugely traumatized and are fear-based look in the future and worry a lot. That's one way of expressing perception is projection. So we're going to do an exercise. I want you to think of someone in your personal life who really bothers you. Does someone come to mind? Someone who makes you angry? Someone you want to avoid? Someone, when you're around, makes you feel agitated. I think of a particular family member who is very loud speaking, as if everyone in the room needs to hear what he has to say. That was my shadow projecting onto this person. And when I looked at it, I found the pieces in me that, I'll put it in a different terms, the pieces in me that were afraid to be visible. The idea of being like that would never occur to me, because to me, that part, that to be that way is really dangerous because you're so visible. People can think badly of you or attack you physically or in speech. There was a part of me that didn't know things with certainty. I hid that part. And there it was out there in this person. Now, think of someone prominent in the public area who bothers you the most. It might be Putin. It might be Trump or any other public figure. And you think about it. What bothers you? Is it because they stand on issues that is different from yours? You think you're right and they're wrong, and the way that they act and talk aggravates you. So look inside and see what is in your shadow. That was one segment of the empowering aspects, because we need to connect with the subconscious in a very positive, active way, so that all that is in the subconscious can be claimed, cleansed, so we can be free of the negative aspects that are there. And one of the ways we do it is the inner child work, because it's the inner child that was traumatized. And for me, the goal of the inner child work is to claim the child's original innocence. Like this, the child, the little baby penguin, doesn't she look so cute and so secure, so close to a parent? That is what every one of us as a young child wanted. Someone always there. So you knew just by the physical proximity that you were safe. But in childhood, say when you were a baby and you were wet and no one changed you, or you were hungry and they didn't feed you in time. Some people have very weird ideas of scheduling feeding. And for parents who did that, they didn't give you the milk, the breast, or the bottle when you needed it. So you may have cried and cried and cried. And that was really hurtful to you, painful, because you needed something so basic and you didn't get it. And that caused a trauma and some form of the idea or belief that you must not be visible, you must not matter, not be important, not be of value. And oftentimes this changes to, I must be bad, not good enough. If I were better and good, people would be around me, holding me when I needed comfort and taking care of my needs. So this very simple way, we can understand how in the subconscious are the traumas, are the beliefs, and whatever strategies this young person developed to survive. The trauma parts, the inner child, are all about survival. So that if they come to the idea from gathering the information around them that if you have a lot of money, you have a lot of power, and people will like you, they would need you. So that's the pattern that gets developed. A more common pattern that I see is people pleasing, being really watchful of people's needs so you can please them. Because the young thinking is, if I can please them, they will like me and I'll get from them what I need. Or I need love. So growing up, always looking for love in terms of friends, and later on in teenagehood or earlier, looking for boyfriends and girlfriends to get love, and then on to marriage to get love. And because you're coming from a wounded place, very often you don't get the love of your life who loves you unconditionally, so that you're hurt in what happens in your marriage or romantic relationship. And you repeat that time and time again. So that was a segment of how inner child wounds are in the unconscious, subconscious. The next segment is about the ego, the small self, and its mischief. So what does the ego do? Well, in one of its most easily seen expression are people who are full of themselves, all puffed up energetically and physically. And they're the ones who want to be at the top of the mountain and want everybody off it. They're the ones who want what they want, even if it means stepping on people. This is sort of ego so huge that all they can see is what they want, never anyone else. So here are some of ego's mischievous activities. I'm going to take a pause here and say that two prominent pieces of spiritual literature is A Course in Miracles, where there is so much discussion about the ego, because the ego is opposite to unity, which is what A Course in Miracles is about. And a sequel to that in the One with God series. So, what are some of the things that ego does? Uses thinking to cause fear. Do you ever notice that when you're feeling bad or afraid, if you trace it, it's because thinking brought you thoughts that made you afraid or made you feel bad about yourself or angry, giving you a really good basis to be afraid. Because ego's essence is fear. Ego works through the language and concepts of duality, opposites, like right versus wrong. One of the biggest sources of what's wrong in our world Simply, it's because some people think they're right and some people think they're wrong. Right fights those they think is wrong. And that's what causes conflicts and causes war. In the Gaza, in the Ukraine, where people are being killed because some people believe that their way is the right thing to do. This is ego operating all those who participate in this way. Ego causes separation. So you feel that everyone out there that is not friendly, they're all enemies. They're bad. They're wrong. The opposite to that is unity, seeing that everyone is a sister or brother and behaving that way. So you can see that ego's activities creates a lot of darkness. And ego uses the material in the subconscious to help create fear, separation. So it's a good question, isn't it, about how you nullify the ego? First is awareness. There is that awareness piece. When you are aware of ego's effects, when you study enough or taught enough about how ego operates, you realize that you've got to watch for ego because ego really messes things up. And then if you see how ego's activity causes separation, if you be still a moment, see how separation affects the heart. What comes to mind is when you feel very close, you have a very good friend, and you're separated because there was a misunderstanding or a fight. That separation really affects the heart. It's so very different from when you're together and feel connected. You feel at peace. You feel the love. Ego doesn't want that harmony and that love. So seeing the effects gets your attention. And you can say, oh, it's ego operating. I've got that. And then you can begin to cultivate compassion for the other, for yourself, so that the jagged edges of ego's activity can be nullified by being compassionate. Compassionate means extending and greeting with kindness and gentleness parts of yourself or parts of the other, not seeing them as the enemy. Practicing gratitude and forgiveness, these more higher states, is a way of nullifying ego. For example, if you start thinking of things you're grateful for and really get in the spirit of it, do it for 5 minutes and be thankful for the rain today, for the walk I've had, for the dinner that's cooking, for the companionship of my partner, for the contact I had with my kids, etc., etc. In the moment of viewing my life and things around me in this way, there's never any fear, never any activity of ego. Forgiveness is also a magical solution to ego's activity. Because if you're in the place of seeing the bigger picture, that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have, but we're all in pain, and many can't control what comes out of them because of this pain. So they hurt others. They become the bullies. But when you get the picture that they were the effect of the pain they had in them, that probably was created in what they experienced in their childhood, then you get the bigger picture. We're all the same. We all are at the effect of what is around us. We can see it through eyes of forgiveness. I want to diverge right now and talk about Neil Donald Walsh's Conversation with God, Peace. That's a children's book called The Little Soul and the Sun. So up in heaven in the clouds, little soul is bouncing around a little angel. He's having conversations with God. And in the course of this, little soul says, who am I? I'm an angel, God might have said, but everybody else is here besides God and angel. So how does that make me different? So God said, think about it and see who you want to be. And the little soul comes back and said, I want to be forgiveness. So God said, okay, we're sending you down to earth. But before the little soul was sent down, the friendly angel comes forward and says, I'm coming with you. So they're taking the garbs, their costumes out of this chest. And as they're doing that, the friendly soul said, I'm going with you, but you have to promise this one thing. Please promise. And the little soul says, of course, of course. The friendly angel says, please promise me that you will never forget who I am. So that didn't seem very difficult. Then she continues, because I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to hurt you in the worst way. I will forget myself and I will beat you, torture you, and hurt you beyond your imagination. And you can't forget. So God intervenes at this point, or the book ends by saying, I only sent angels. Basically saying, we are all angels, but we have our costumes. And some of us are the good guys, and some of us are the victims of the bad guys. So this is a way of practicing forgiveness, because we need to develop and evolve to get the bigger picture about how everyone has inner children, and some have healed enough to be kind, compassionate, and others are still at the effect of all that is in the subconscious. My practice, because I follow the voice of awakening in with the One with God books, I've been instructed to turn the ego over to source. And when I remember to do that, it's just miraculous, because ego disappears. After all, source is so much more than the little ego. Now, I want to talk about the subconscious in another way. In the practice of MAP, Make Anything Possible, we have been trained to work with the subconscious in a way so that the subconscious becomes a very powerful healing part of us. MAP is founded on the work of Dr. Gary A. Flint, a clinical psychologist who took on the challenge of working with the most difficult patients to bring to wellness and wholeness. And that was the population of people who had been tortured in cults. They develop alters, split personality. The Three Faces of Eve is a story not as awful as cults, but of how the personality fragments in order to survive. That is the dramatic, bigger picture, bigger expression of what happens to all of us. We get fragmented because of the painful experience. Each one creates trauma parts. And the purpose of the trauma parts is to survive. And because they're created so young, their wisdom is definitely limited. They don't have the flexibility of changing patterns and seeing things differently. They're stuck in their beliefs and the patterns that run the adult life. So it's so important to treat the trauma parts. And this we can do with a trained subconscious, which we call the SuperConscious, because we recognize that the amount of healing and power a trained superconscious, subconscious can do, we aptly name that SuperConscious. And one playful way of thinking of it is like it's the magical genie that came out of Aladdin's lamp. But it's not just 3 wishes. When you become acquainted with working with SuperConscious, it's like having a genie in your pocket. So when SuperConscious is needed, you can say, I see this pain, this distress, my pattern behavior, my belief, how I hurt. Please treat this. So that is how we can turn the subconscious into your superpower. Because with that kind of superpower, transformation happens deeply and quickly. When we've healed enough, when we've reduced the ego's influences, when we have taken everything that contributes to a narrower world, we can remove the limitations and see possibilities. But more than that, as I described with the inner child work, you can get to a place where the child remembers that he or she is spirit who came as love, but learned fear instead. So the job of healing, moving ahead, evolving, is to go beyond duality and separation, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. There is a field. I'll meet you there. And as I put this together and looked at it, I realized that the awakened human being, Rumi, is there in that field with all the awakened masters and spirits. Because They've gone beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. So it's time for imagination, which we've done each day. And I may have said it before, but it's worth saying again. Intuition, the 3 I's: intuition, imagination, inspiration. I'm going to stress right now how powerful imagination is. So don't take this exercise lightly. Imagine that you are among people you formerly didn't want anything to do with, but you have changed the glasses that you wear, and all you can see is the light inside of them. They're so peaceful, so kind, gentle, and loving. And when you look at yourself, you see a light there too. And you can feel the connection between all of you. And it makes you feel so calm and at peace. Thank you for going on that excursion with me. And those who hesitated and didn't, your reluctance to participate in something new suggests that fear from the subconscious is there, and it's worth paying attention to and see the child part that generated this fear out of concern that there is something dangerous that you shouldn't participate in. So it's commitment time. And this commitment, you write on a notepad that you have, I, your name, commit to. And you can write whatever you can commit to, big or small. As you look over the last 4 days, today included, something that stood out and said, I commit to exploring this more, practicing this, giving time for me to pay attention to whatever it is. Make a commitment. And if you can't do it now, after this is over, look at your notebook and fill it out. Okay, this is the sign that there is an assignment, something to do before the next day, tomorrow, the last day. It's a piece of self-reflection. Self-reflection is a way to build awareness. So all of the homework assignments really is space you give yourself out of your habits, out of all your doings, time for yourself to reflect on yourself. In this particular instance, find instances of how you are projecting your shadow onto people in your life. The whole concept of the shadow is not talked about that much, but I'm aware of it because of the work I do. And just the other day, I began to be aware of a theme with my dearest spiritual friend and the clients that I'd been working with in the last week. And the theme was feeling hurt by things that weren't working out in the family, feeling that there is no family, for one, feeling really disappointed that what she imagined with the work that she had done, her presence and her book didn't take on as she expected. She saw other spiritual teachers gather hundreds and thousands of followers. She didn't do that, at least not now. And there's a bit of ego there because of the way she was let down. She was hurt and experienced depression, anger, sadness. I didn't hear fear. But then in my clients as well, feeling a lot of rage in at least two of my clients, a lot of rage. And what was the rage against? It was against God. So I had to take a look at that and say, what am I projecting here? What about my issues with God that I haven't looked at? That's the extent to how I looked at how I was projecting, how my shadow was cast onto people in my life. This is the end of day 4. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope that I explained things clearly enough so that you found some pieces of help, pointers, wisdom, something that's made you see things differently, something that gave you more hope, that you have more resources to move forward in life, out of being stuck, out of feeling not enough, etc. And you can always reach me. I'm available. Thank you. I am appending this short video after the 4th day. It's not part of what happened live. And the reason I'm doing this is to transition from 4 days to the 5th day, which will be different. Segment 2, 3, and 4 contain the bulk of my secrets or keys to the transformation of segments of your life so you can live differently, feel free to create something that will be truly satisfying to you. So in the next segment, the 5th one that comes up, I will be talking more the broad picture and the journeys of some of my clients who started perhaps where you are and what they went through to come to a place of feeling more in their power, more their true selves. So you get a taste of what I have to offer. So I hope you will stay with me till you hear or see the next segment. Thank you for being here so far.